let's talk Kiriko. She's been out since the launch of Overwatch 2, and it's a very versatile kit. And all these videos with the tips and the tricks of here's Kiriko and how to play her have been out for a while. However, in all of those guides, I have never seen someone talk about reasoning or in team play or how she's supposed to work. But with game sense and everything, it's always about the mechanics and the little things you can do with her abilities. Now, before we get into anything, let's just go over her kit real quick. You have her kunai, who do a lot of headshot damage, not a lot of body shot damage. She has her wall climb, and you can heal aimbot. You have Suzu, which blocks damage while you can heal, and you have a teleport to get places where you need to fast. Now, you may be thinking, who is this random guy who popped in my recommended, or that someone linking this video? I am a GM flex support, collegiate player, so I understand scrims and team play and action and like real matches. I talk about real matches. I mean like a 5 vs 5 competitive team. A lot of the streamers, no hate against them, big names, they're ranked players, they don't understand scrims as much, they don't understand team play as much. That is where I specialize most in. And I have a link in the description to a great coach. He's my coach. His name is Sewer101. Please check him out. Before we get into it, this is a very audio heavy guide, so feel free to just minimize the tab or put it on your second screen. I will point out clips of specific scenarios when they're used. Now, with all this being said, let's get into tip number 1. Exploit movement. Now, Kiriko has 2 movement abilities. She has her TP and her wall climb. Focusing on wall climb, it's good for pre-fight positioning so you can get good poke, which means free damage, more ult charge, and you can try to catch the enemies on rotation to get early fight picks and just end the fight right there and make them reset. Wall climb's also good for escaping a situation where if you're on low ground and you climb to high ground and the enemy does not have a vertical movement ability, you just return to safety and can now heal and shoot for free without having to worry about enemies attacking you. Now, there's one small thing with wall climb that's like a technical area. If there's a pocket of air or a slight gap in the wall you're trying to climb, like in this clip scene above, you can't climb it. Like right here, there's a little pocket above and it breaks the wall and you can't finish climbing. The same applies to Mei Wall and for the wall climb of Genji and Hanzo. If you climb and hit between the pillars, it will cancel the climb and you won't be able to get over. Now, TP is a very self-explanatory ability. You use it to escape whenever you're in danger, or to reposition without being noticed. That is the key part. You do not want the enemy to know where you TP to, because then it's very easy for them to just collapse on you and easily take you out because you don't have your escape cooldown, and Suzu only protects you for so long. Tip 2 is Suzuing to block damage. Now, I know what most of you are thinking. Suzu doesn't block damage, it makes you invulnerable. And to that I say yes, it does make you invulnerable, but during that invulnerability, if someone shoots at who you Suzu'd, they don't take damage, so that's why I say it blocks damage. Now, a lot of time I see people Suzu to save someone, which does help, and I even do that in this clip. I Suzu my Sigma late, but an ideal Suzu and what you should strive for is to prevent that damage from happening in the first place. A good example, since Junker Queen is meta, is instead of Suzuing after Junker Queen Carnage hits and she axes your whole team, just throw it beforehand and then the axe goes through thin air and she doesn't get her healing, she doesn't get anything. Another thing for Suzu you should strive to be able to do is to use the splash radius to its fullest. I played Baptiste for a while and I found that the splash radius is very similar. So if you get good at hitting good nades with Baptiste, you'll get good at hitting good Suzus because you can hit it off walls and get the splash radius and hit multiple people. One final niche tip is to steal environmental kills with Suzu because it does have the slight boop, and in competitive play, people will jump off the map to reset. If you hit them with the Suzu while they're jumping off, you get the kill credit and then take ult charge as if it was an environmental kill like Lucio boop. Tip number 3 is Synergising Cooldowns for survivability. You have a second support to help you stay alive and keep your team alive. If you use your cooldowns at the same time, the uptime is obviously shortened by a lot. However, if you use them more spread out or in good timing with each other with good synergy, you can now accomplish a lot more as a support duo. This is shown in the clip above, where if I didn't have my Baptiste here to keep me alive, I probably would have died, and then in turn more people would have been taken out like the Hanzo who was weak. Now let's move on to the last of the tips, tip number 4, and what everyone loves to talk about is mechanics. If you've noticed so far, I haven't really emphasized mechanics too much, and that's because game sense trumps mechanics except at the highest level play, which is around GM1 to top 500 and obviously into pro play, which is why most of this guide has focused on game sense rather than just focusing on improving mechanics and hitting more shots. With that being said, a couple things you want to work on is obviously getting projectile speed down, animation cancels, which there are a couple. Blizzard added the animation cancel with your healing of Fuda, can now cancel your reload animation, but you can cancel an animation with your TP, Suzu, or wall climb anyway. Another mechanic you want to get used to is the curve of your Fuda or paper. Healing of Fuda does have a curve radius that you want to get used to. If a teammate goes around a wall or is moving around a corner, you can adjust your aim and get the curve to hit them just right so the paper doesn't hit a wall and not heal them. The last thing about mechanics is in the clip above, and it's just spamming down angles. You might sometimes want to just spam down an angle to get free damage and more free ult charge. Now with all those tips and tricks, that about sums up the guide on Kiriko. However, there are a few things to remember before you leave. You should absolutely limit test what you can get away with individually in your own games and matches. Overwatch is not a game that is set in stone. Every team plays different, and every team has different weaknesses, so please limit test. And finally, do the little things that no one will see and the thankless jobs. Yes, you will need to play the boring pocket and just sit there and pocket your tank or your DPS, but it needs to be done. Play right, not flashy.